Okay, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I begin with this in transit, I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Hakadash. Double honors to the apostles, the elders, Agri, Millstone, who rule well and teach well. Shalom to the hopeful elect and your I command your brothers pushing this word throughout the four corners of the earth without truth and sincerity, making your calling and election sure, man. Shalom, shalom. And this is going to be a quick in transit, man, just going into, making your time useful for your Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, man, not letting work and your day-to-day life stray you away from doing this work, man, because at the end of the day, this is the only thing that matters. We're getting ready to come into a time where shit's gonna hit the fan, and the only thing you're gonna be able to lean on is your work, your own work, because when you read the book of 2 Genesis 9 chapter, it says what, through work and faith whereby ye have believed. So you need to have works, man. Also the book of James, James says what? Faith without works is dead. Because how the fuck are you going to be able to examine, or how are you going to be able to practice what you preach, so to say, if you're not having any works? And what I mean by that, going into Jacob's trouble, which we're quickly approaching, you're not having any works to show for your faith, you're not going to make it, man. And at the end of the day, if the scriptures say work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You making one lesson in 2 weeks, but you're going to camp every Friday. Man, you can't be doing that, bro. The Lord's not going for that. The Lord's not dealing with you if you're doing that. All right? Speaking to myself first and foremost, man. First and foremost, Salaki. The scriptures say, I would rather that thou art, cold than hot, because thou art lukewarm, which you're neither cold nor hot, the Lord's gonna spew thee out, man. So you gotta be in this thing, on fire, man. It doesn't mean you gotta be blasting 30 lessons a week and whatever. No, it just means being in the spirit day by day. The scriptures say putting off, from day to day. For suddenly shall the wrath of the Most High appear unto you, man. And then in thy security, thou shalt be visited, something to that effect, or thou shalt be destroyed. That's what it says. So, putting off from day to day means, if you're not making a lesson, you're watching a lesson. If you're not watching a lesson, you're making a lesson. If you're not, making or watching a lesson, you're studying, man. And when you're done studying or doing, that, you go ahead and what? That's when you go ahead and balance yourself out. On your lunch break, man. Like right now, I'm on my lunch break right now. I'm actually on the way to go pick something up. Go ahead and, click the video, man. Start recording. Shoot that video, man. So you had the elder, what's his name? Shalakia, not to Zakba. Sometimes you wouldn't even eat lunch. You would, be on the live the whole time, just, going into it. Breaking shit down for brothers. Not shit, Shalakia, breaking the scriptures down, for brothers. Gaining some understanding out there, man. Questions. Me personally, I know what I gotta, work on, and I know what I gotta get back into, and that's what I gotta do. Getting back into the breakdowns, getting back into the milk, right? The scriptures say, grow by the sincere milk thereby. Right? There's enough work for us, to do. There's enough work, and there's enough things happening right now around the world for us, to touch up on, go to camp with, go bring out, You don't gotta know every fucking thing, but at the end of the day, you gotta be able to go ahead and teach, man. Prophesy. Make your calling and election sure. Give diligence to make thy calling and election sure. Therefore, that way you can't fail. Hey, man, we're getting ready to come into a scary time. I just seen a video, which I'm actually gonna make a lesson on, about power outages getting ready to come, and talking about how people are gonna be preparing for it, man. But the thing is you can't prepare for this shit, bro. We're preparing for it right now, doing this work. That's why I'm making this lesson, man. You gotta make sure you're doing this work. All right. So, hey, with that, I just got here to spot quick 4-minute, 5-minute lesson in trans. Brothers, there's no excuse for brothers not being able to do this work, man. Brothers making transits, on the way to work in the mornings, on the way to lunch. There's always leeway for brothers, to do this work, man. So, hey, more willingness has been exhorting and edifying. Hey, the scriptures say one more precept, man, before I head out. He wants, what's that one precept that goes into something, it goes to the effect of, make sure, you guys all show the same diligence. You can't be in a camp or, dealing with brothers if one brother's right there just making one lesson every fucking 3 weeks, every 2 weeks. but you're going to camp. Man, no, the Lord's not dealing with that, man. You got to be making sure you're doing the work. All right? So, hey, with that, I'm going to close out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Kakodash, Shalom.